Hey, everybody. Welcome. Hunt Club podcast, product briefing. I think we're doing, yeah, product briefing session.
Yes.
Um, you've seen my face on these podcasts. Sure, you've seen Nicole's too, but Nicole and I have never done one together. So this is gonna be
That's
this
right.
is gonna be like a one-on-one because full transparency, Nicole and I are on the same team. We're both in product marketing. Um, but I thought it would be fun to have a conversation with Nicole. You could see on this title slide here, the GigaOm analyst firm just named us a leader in NDR. And this is on the heels of, uh, if you haven't heard, the release of the first ever Gartner Magic Quadrant for NDR as well. So Nicole's talking to analysts, I'm talking to analysts, different analyst firms, different ways of measuring NDR. So I thought it'd be fun to have a conversation back and forth with Nicole on the different perspectives of these analyst firms,
Yep.
where they have a shared perspective of NDR, where their priorities or perspectives may differ. So we're gonna riff it. We're just gonna have fun with this and riff it. But Nicole, I don't know if you wanted to add or introduce. You don't need to introduce yourself. People know who you are, but go ahead.
Yep. No, I think you nailed it, Woj. Yeah, there's a lot of talk in the market right now, especially with the various analyst firms. So we just wanted to dive right into it.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're not going to take us through a slide presentation, but I love showing this image.
Yep.
No, people know why I love showing this image. But it's interesting because I don't know about you, but I think you and I have talked about this. It's like it's weird, not weird. Is it a coincidence? And I don't think it is, that we have IDC release the MarketScape for NDR. Then we have Gartner release the Magic Quadrant for NDR. Forrester's going to work on their wave, right? Or is working on their wave, or at least kicking that off. GigaOm released. We've talked to Frost and Sullivan. All of these analyst firms are all of a sudden giving NDR a ton of attention. The big one being obviously the MQ. Everyone kind of, you know, I shouldn't say the big, well, yeah, the big one being the MQ. Everyone seems to like point their fingers at the MQ. But I wanted to ask you, I have a perspective as to why NDR, why now, but I wanted to hear kind of based on your conversations with GigaOm and other analyst firms, Nicole, what you think the
Yeah.
buzz around NDR is.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. I think it's not talked about enough, but in my opinion, I mean, as we know and what we've heard from customers, the network is changing. So it's more interconnected. It's not just on-prem campus data center anymore. It's cloud, identity, remote work, IoT, OT, all of these things. And a lot of legacy solutions aren't cutting it anymore. And therefore they're going to, their colleagues, they're going to these analyst firms such as Gartner and GigaOm and whatnot, and they're asking like, what really fits the criteria of, the problems that I'm facing, with an expanding network, essentially.
Yeah, yeah, I hear the same thing. I hear a few reasons why um NDR is why these reports are coming out, right? And you can kind of attribute them to like kind of four or five different things. One being the market's growing, obviously. One thing that I talked to Gartner about was that the landscape's mature. Like there's established vendors, it's an established market. Um, there's differentiation in NDR, and there's emerging technology or innovation in the space. And they're quite frankly just taking more calls from end users, right?
Yeah.
It's like, to your point, hey, I have this challenge or this use case, or we got into a whole conversation yesterday with some analysts about NDR use cases and what are the top ones and what technologies could it replace. It was like you and I could probably talk about this forever, but they're just taking more calls. Did you get any indication from your conversations with GigaOm on, like, based on the questions they asked us, what kinds of calls they're getting, or what kind of, like, where is that buyer interest in it, or
Yeah,
or in NDR?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a buzz around AI and how AI is being implemented into an NDR. So I think that's very top of mind with GigaOM specifically. They had a few questions around that. They highlighted that in the actual report, that it's, you know, essentially a critical capability to implement AI into your NDR. They, also mentioned having an NDR that fits into, your broader security stack. They are kind of calling out that it's NDR might not be the end all be all. We understand, especially with large enterprises, they have a large security stack. So it being able to integrate and seamlessly integrate is really important. And then obviously like scaling and with your organization, with your SOC team was also called out in the questions that they had. They had a few questions around deployment and things like that, and flexibility of deployment and, all those things. And then essentially, an NDR, so detection response
Yeah.
capabilities, right? It'd be kind of, obtuse if they didn't call that out. So to have very strong detection and response. And what we say also investigation, they didn't clearly said that, but a lot of their questions implied, investigation capabilities as well.
So where did we land? We're staring at this picture
Yes.
for nauseum, but
So
I wanted to see the, how GigaOM sees the market.
yeah.
I'll let you kind of talk to this.
Yes. So as you can see on the radar image here, there were a lot of vendors, as you mentioned, it's a mature market. There's a lot of vendors in the space, but we were named a leader and outperformer in the 2025 GigaOM Radar for NDR. I also want to just plug in that we were also the only vendor to be named a leader and outperformer in ITDR, which is their separate identity threat detection and response platform. So to us, it's very critical to cover the entire modern network, including identity in that. That also played a role in this NDR report too, because we called that out as well in terms of our coverage areas. But yeah, they really named us a leader and outperformer essentially for our expansive network coverage, as I mentioned previously. Our advanced detections, especially around C2, they name that as a very critical capability, and our seamless integrations into the larger security stack. I thought this was really cool, especially with GigaOM. They're a little more nuanced as an analyst firm compared to Gartner and others, because they are not full-time analysts. All of the analysts at GigaOM, they have full-time jobs. They're actual end users of solutions like NDR.
Yeah.
So I think it was pretty cool that they named us, leader and outperformer. But yeah, that was kind of the summary,
Yes.
high level
I think,
summary, if you will.
yeah, I think that's important because it's like we now the I, you can't like just take this. Yes, you can take these kind of analyst reports at face value, but you also have to consider like how they, who's doing the analysis. To your point, right?
Mhm.
GigaOM tends to be more practitioner. Gartner tends to be ex-practitioners or experts in certain markets or areas of markets, technologies, whatever it might be. But then they look at things differently. So how Gartner measures or evaluates a market like NDR is they look at, does the vendors does the vendor have a vision, right,
Yeah.
for the market, the space, the technology, the platform as a company, and can they execute? It's interesting. That caters a buyer versus look at GigaOM, maturity, innovation, platform play, feature play. And it's just an interesting perspective from like a practitioner, from the practitioner sense is, hey, am I investing in a platform that's highly innovative, or do I want something that's really mature, feature play, for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
right? Or an innovative feature play. And it's going to differ, like depending on the customer, the buyer, or the company, the organization, kind of what is important to them. But one thing you said that I did this, um, we did a webinar last week, or earlier this week on, um, NDR from, I forget the title of it. It was about NDR market momentum, right? And where is it coming from? And I laid out 5 analyst firms and looked at like all of their quote unquote requirements or what they're looking for in an NDR, what makes a good NDR, what makes a good NDR platform. And there's so many commonalities
Yeah.
amongst them.
Yeah.
AI, you had mentioned, was one of them. Um, ability to integrate, that's clearly, I mean, it's like table stakes. It's like AI, it's like table stakes. Ability to integrate into their stack, table stakes. Um, you know, what are, and I don't want to go through all of these table stakes, but it's like, were there any things that you, in your conversations with GigaOM, that were like above and beyond table stakes, like differentiators? You had mentioned a couple, ability to C2 detection and things like that. I have a hunch as to what they might be, but I wanted to hear hear what how they saw us from a differentiation perspective, or what they consider differentiating in the NDR space.
Yeah. I mean, they really appreciated our AI models because we went into detail on why, our AI is really powers our entire platform. So, they appreciated our patents in AI, the fact that we cover over 90% of the MITRE attack framework. So all these things were, called out in our briefing with them and sprinkled throughout the report as well. Advanced C2 detections for advanced attacks, especially for lateral movement, data exfiltration, those kinds of things were also really important to them, that they called out for us specifically. Another thing that they did highlight in our briefing with them is that they really did appreciate the just pure innovation that Vectra does. So we, invest 40% of our R&D as a company. Innovation's very, very top of mind. We do monthly product releases for appliance and almost daily releases for our cloud or Rux UI. So they appreciated that. And, innovation is one of their kind of criteria in the radar, the actual
Yeah.
radar itself. So that was something that they liked compared to other vendors who, might do more in marketing or whatnot. So yeah. And then, in addition, just our outlook, I think, of the network. Again,
Yeah.
just not being on-prem, not just being data center, the entirety of it. I'm sure some of you guys have seen, our modern network kind of image of what that looks like to us. So they really appreciated that we, detect and respond in all of those different coverage areas.
Yeah, I think, that I would echo. I hear the same thing, in terms of like, when you think about vision for NDR and ability to execute, it's like kind of the Gartner MQ matrices versus, innovation, the GigaOM matrices. I think of like in we've been talking about modern network, modern attack, like thus modern NDR platform. Like the modern, to your point, the modern network goes way beyond data center, campus. It's remote work, it's SaaS, it's cloud identity, it's this sprawling, ever-changing thing. Um, and modern attackers love that, right?
Yeah.
Because they
Yeah.
see one giant attack surface and they can move around. And, this is a whole separate conversation we can have. And there's other podcasts that we've done that talk about the modern network and how modern attackers exploit it. But the one thing and you touched on it a little bit, but the one thing that I think is common thread, and we've been saying this for 3 years now. Remember,
Yeah.
remember when we did attack signal intelligence? We came out
Yes.
with the notion of attack signal intelligence. That's what stands, it makes us stand apart from the others. We gave our AI kind of a name. The one thread that I think bleeds through all of these analyst firms, and some weight it more than others, but where we tend to be a leader is when accuracy of signal is of the utmost importance,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
one of the must. We talk about coverage, clarity, and control, And we've made the argument that, yep, it's one thing to cover the modern network, right? Make sure you have visibility across all of these things. And clearly GigaOm's like, yeah, you guys have a broad view of the network and you have visibility across all of these and you integrate with Zscaler and others and da da da. You got to have control. Can you take immediate act? Can you take action? Do you automate? Do you integrate with tools? You know, what's your reporting look like? All that kind of good stuff. But rarely do people talk about the middle C, which is clarity, which you can have all the coverage in the world, you can have all the control in the world, but if you don't have clarity, you're never going to have control. It's Attacker's always going to be, 5 steps ahead. So I don't know if I think that the clarity story, and this is kind of plays into the you had mentioned the ITDR report from GigaOm. Our other team member Tiff was involved in that one, and everybody check out that podcast. It's pretty cool, and I think that clarity story comes through in that as well.
Yeah.
But
no, definitely agreed. I mean, we are very different NDR in that we take siloed data and we put it all together and we paint a really good, accurate picture for our end users and our customers. And I think, analysts and our customers alike really appreciate that, especially in, reducing alerts, alert noise, host attribution. So they know that this is really what's happening. They don't have to do more, work on it. So I think that's something that's a common thread throughout, especially, with the network being so big. If you don't have clarity, you can't really stop an attack, period.
Yeah.
So, attackers know that. They know they need the network to go, reach their target. And if you don't know where it's coming from or where it's moving or whatnot, it makes it really, really difficult for SOC teams and end users to stop.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to do a whole other podcast on coverage, clarity, and control, and what that means. Maybe you, Tiff, and I should get together and just rant on that for what? We're on 23 minutes. Is that right? I'm like, oh, Nicole, let's do it. We'll do a 10 to 15 minutes. Never with me. I talk too much. But anyway, this was awesome. Thanks, Nicole. Anything else you want to add? Anything that we missed? Anything you wanted to ask me? I've been asking you all these questions.
I think we kind of covered it all. I think we're good. I mean, obviously we are continuing to innovate. We're continuing to evolve. We're continuing to, as you mentioned earlier, talk to the various analyst firms in the market, get their input from what they're hearing, from customers, and the market trends in general. So we, are continuing to make our product better, and stop breaches. So that's what we're here to do.
Hey.
And obviously we're very grateful to be recognized by both Gartner and GigaOm. So it's very,
and it's simple. It's like modern network, modern attack, modern NDR. The network's always changing and evolving constantly. Thus attackers are always changing, evolving constantly. NDR has to change, evolve, innovate constantly. Right. And that's why we do these reports. That's why we talk to these analysts. That's why we talk to customers. That's like we're trying to figure out and solve for not only what's happening today, but what challenges do we foresee coming in the network space, right? Given the network is this modern, hybrid, expansive, what I would argue, one giant attack surface. This is really hard to defend. So anyway, thank you, Nicole.
Yep. Thank you.
Enjoyed it. This will be the first of many, I think, between the two of us. I think we'll keep it pithier and shorter maybe on future ones, but
we'll
anyway.
work on it.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Again, check out the ITDR podcast. We did similar with Tiff, and I think Tiff and John may have done that one together. Subscribe, comment, give us feedback, throw ideas at us. Heck, if you want to be on the podcast as a guest, throw some ideas our way. We'll bring you on. We'll have a conversation. That's what these are all about. So with that, thanks everybody. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. See ya.